What's going on, guys? Get123 here, and today we are going to be talking about Grand Theft Auto 6. Yes, I said it, Grand Theft Auto 6. Now, more specifically, we are going to be looking at where Grand Theft Auto 6 could potentially take place. And before we get into it, I should mention this video is coming from popular demand from you guys, because I've been getting a lot of messages and a lot of comments from you guys asking, where do you think Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to take place? So since you guys have been asking for so long, that's going to be the topic that we cover today. So to start it out, the first thing that I want to say is that this video is purely speculation. This should not be confused with confirmed news. Don't think that I have any sort of insider information. I'm just going by what we've seen from Rockstar in the past and using that knowledge to hopefully gain some insight of the future. So the first thing that we're going to look at is this list right here. This is a list of all the previous Grand Theft Auto games with the exception of 1 and 2, and as you can see, the first one on the list there is Grand Theft Auto 3. Now that one took place in Liberty City, as we all know. Then 1 year later, we got Grand Theft Auto Vice City, which, well, clearly it took place in Vice City. Then 2 years later, we got Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and as the title says, it took place in San Andreas. So after that, you've got Grand Theft Auto Advance, Liberty City Stories, Vice City Stories, but those don't really count, those are kind of like side stories. Then the big next release was 2008 Grand Theft Auto 4. Now, as we all know, that game revisited Grand Theft Auto 3's city, Liberty City. So they kind of went back to that and they redid it with their updated graphics, updated physics engine, and I think the real motive behind that was to do Liberty City justice. Before, we had seen it in poor graphics, as I said, and due to the restraints of technology at the time, they weren't really able to go into as much depth as they would have liked to. So in Grand Theft Auto 4, they revisited it and they did it better. The map anyway. Some might argue that the story and other aspects were better in Grand Theft Auto 3, but I digress. Moving on, the next installments that we saw that are on the list right here were The Lost and the Damned, Chinatown Wars, and The Ballad of Gay Tony, but once again, we are not going to count those because those were kind of more like side stories once again. They weren't big, huge console flagship releases. So then that would mean the next one was 2013 Grand Theft Auto 5. Now, I think we all know that Grand Theft Auto 5 revisited the San Andreas area, and once again, they outdid themselves. Like, I'm almost speechless when I think about what they pulled off with the map. They revisited something that they once did, and much like they did with Grand Theft Auto 4, they added so much more detail and so many things that they weren't able to add at the time due to technical limitations. The PlayStation 2 and the Xbox pretty much lacked the power to really output what Rockstar probably wanted to do at the time, so by going back to it, they made their statement and said, hey, look what we can do now. With the technology and the advancements that have been made, we're able to give you a city that we once did, but, give it to you how we truly wanted to do it. Because now we have the time, the power, the technology, and of course, the money. Because as we all know, Grand Theft Auto 5 was the most expensive video game ever made, as well as one of the most expensive pieces of media ever produced in the history of anything ever. So that's a lot of things. It was an expensive game. So, having said all of that, this is all building up to the point that I'm going to make, and I think you guys can see what it's going to be. And that is, if Rockstar continues this trend, then that means that we can expect to see Grand Theft Auto 6 in Vice City. Now, that is just one theory. It is a theory that is contingent upon them continuing with the same formula that they've been doing, which is revisiting past cities and redoing them with updated physics and updated graphics and updated stories. So like I said, if that is something that they would like to keep doing, then by all means, Grand Theft Auto 6 would be in Vice City. However, we all know Rockstar, and we all know how unpredictable they can be. They're very secretive, they don't like to release a lot of information all the time, they just kind of go their own way. They don't even go to things like E3, the biggest gaming convention in the world. They basically sit back and let the community, they let us stir up the hype, and then it just goes viral, and it's really incredible what they pull off. So, having said all of that, they could easily deviate from the theory that I just said, because they don't want to be predictable. No video game publisher wants to be predictable. They always want to throw curveballs and keep people excited, keep surprises underneath the blanket so that when they're revealed, people freak out. And it would be kind of bad if, we were already expecting the correct city that it's gonna be roughly 5 years before Grand Theft Auto 6 even comes out. So now that pretty much opens up a whole nother door of opportunity. If they don't take the predictable route, the Vice City route, maybe they want to throw in a new city into the mix, something they've never done before. So I assume it would be a location that isn't very close to what they've done before. Because as you guys know, Liberty City is basically New York, San Andreas is basically Los Angeles and the surrounding area, and I believe that Vice City is modeled after Miami, Florida. So those are locations that are pretty much spread across the entire United States. I mean, you've got Eastern US, Western US, and Southern US, and none of them are very close together at all. They're all thousands of miles apart. So assuming that they don't want to choose a new city that's close to one that they've already done, like, you know, if they've already done Los Angeles, then they're probably not going to pick San Francisco, or if they've already done New York, then they're not going to do something like Boston, Massachusetts, or at least I don't think so. So if it's a city in the US, then I think maybe we could expect something in roughly central United States, maybe something in Texas, or maybe north central United States, something along those lines, or they could throw a complete curveball and take Grand Theft Auto 6 overseas, maybe Grand Theft Auto London, revisit that. I mean, that's a huge throwback, and it would be very cool, in my opinion, to see an updated London in Grand Theft Auto 6 and see Rockstar's touch on it, their spin on it. So I think that a European location is actually a possibility. It would also be taking the Grand Theft Auto series back to Rockstar's home continent. I believe that is where they are located, and I think that it would stir up a lot of excitement in the European regions to see one of their cities be focused for the next Grand Theft Auto. So, in my opinion, as of now, I kind of have a hunch that that's what it might be. You know, the Vice City theory is definitely possible, but I kind of feel like Rockstar's not going to want to be that predictable, and for that reason, I don't know, I just have a feeling that it might be somewhere not in the United States, or I don't know, maybe it could be something crazy like Hawaii, I don't know, even though that's obviously part of the United States, but not the continental continuous United States, but I digress from that as well. So with that, guys, please tell me in the comments below, what city would you like to see Grand Theft Auto 6 take place in? I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say about this, and you know, I want to see if you guys kind of agree with what I have to say, or maybe you'll name some city that's, you know, maybe I never even thought of. So if you like this video and you'd like to see more Grand Theft Auto 6 speculation videos such as this one, please leave a like on the video and tell me in the comments below that you want to see more. And that about does it. With that, please stay tuned for more videos in the future. I will see you next time.